Well, is a 529 plan or a Trump account the best way to go for college funding? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you are saving for college, are you using the best method for that saving vehicle? College admissions expert John Hupalo is here to discuss the detail. John, always good to have you on the program, and a special congratulations because I know that now what's different between today and last month is your granddad.
That's right, Bob. Yeah, we're really excited about that, and a great time to talk about saving for the future from my personal perspective as well as here in May. So, May 29th is fondly known in the savings industry as 529 Day. So, May 29, 529, and that's next Friday. So there's a lot of excitement and banter right now about how to save, plan, and pay for college. And I'm really just blessed to have an opportunity to talk to you about that today. Great to be here.
Yeah, and let me say is that to your daughter that right now is the best time to start saving for that. Can you imagine how much that's going to cost by the time? It's a grand boy, a baby boy, isn't it?
Actually, a girl.
Girl, okay.
And yeah, it's mind-boggling. Now, it's always interesting, Bob, no matter how much experience you have in an industry, and you're seeing this with the boys as they've got through it, it's just different when it becomes really personal. And now I'm starting to see that. I see my daughter and her husband with his baby, and they're trying to figure out just like how to feed it right now. And then you talk to them about, hey, go save for college, and they're looking at me like, what are you, crazy?
It's like last on my list.
Yeah, exactly. And your point is the right one. It shouldn't be last, but it can't be the very first. So I think this is a great topic. I'm really glad that we can talk about it today.
Good. Well, before we get started, like you said, it is that time of year. What are you hearing about enrollment for college? I would think, as we built up over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, that we should start to see maybe some trend changes.
There are going to be some trend changes, Bob, and it's going to be really interesting coming off the pandemic. We saw drops in enrollment in community colleges during the pandemic, very significant. They're starting to trend back the other way toward increases in those community colleges. And the other point that's not lost on the sort of macro folks, the big thinkers, is that we're starting to see what they're calling this enrollment cliff. That's the decline in traditional college-age students that's kind of predicted for about this time. But kind of interestingly, that's not what the applications are showing in the last couple of years. So the demographic folks are watching this pretty carefully, but the practitioners on the ground are right now not seeing much of a change. In fact, maybe a few upticks and a few percentage points of applications being filed. So, we'll keep an eye on this, but it's a really interesting time. May 1st was deposit day, so the high school seniors should now plunk down their money, and they're going to be ready to start facing the bills that are coming in a few short weeks after graduation.
And as so many people have told you, and as we're about to tell so many people, it goes by fast.
A blink of the eye.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah. You and I first talked, I think it's going to be 10 years ago in August, and your son was about to enter his freshman year of high school, if I remember that correctly, and time has passed. So, it's as much as things change, they kind of remain the same. And I think talking about savings today is really great because a lot is the same, but an awful lot has changed to make the savings programs even better for those who can take advantage of them.
And I will add, and you correct me if I'm wrong, over the last 10 years, I don't believe that we've intentionally talked about 529 plans, and that is just unbelievable.
And, it's one of those things. Maybe we can talk about it next month, just like parents think, well, maybe we can start thinking about this next month, and then 10 years go by. And they've got a 10-year-old, and now they're 8 years from college instead of 18 years from college. So I think it's just something natural about thinking that this is the kind of topic you can deal with another day, and I'm glad we're dealing with it today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, we'll start out with 529 plans. Obviously, we want to get to the question of which one's better, 529 plans or the Trump account, which is a new type of savings plan. Now, talk a little bit about a 529 plan, how it works, and all those good details.
Yeah, at the highest level, Bob, 529, which may be the worst named savings plan I've ever heard.
You think?
Well, it's named after Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code.
Right,
That's where that came from, right? So,
right.
But what's really great about it is that each state, except for actually the state of Wyoming, but every state has at least one 529 plan that either the treasurer's office or some other entity within the state government oversees. And those state plans are in place in each state. But what's really important, and this is a very key point for anyone listening, is you don't have to use your state plan. Some of the states offer tax breaks, or sometimes they might be a deduction or a credit or whatever it might be. But you're not required and you're not limited to just using your state plan. So Texas has a Texas College Savings Plan. It's a great plan, but folks in Texas don't have to use that plan. They can go around and shop, and if your listeners are really interested, they can go to the National Association of State Treasurers site. They have a special one called collegesavings.org, and there are two tools on there. One is called Find My State's 529, and then there's a comparison tool. And Bob, I know this because Invite Education, my company, provides those tools to the National Association of State Treasurers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go up there and look at those comparison tools, you'll be able to put them side by side and get basically all the information you could want about any of the plans, the fee structures, the minimums that you can put in, the maximums that they'll take, all of the nitty-gritty details are right there at collegesavings.org, which is the state treasurer site. But again, the great thing is the states have them, they oversee them. Now, what becomes a little confusing sometimes is often is the case, and it's the case in Texas, that the state offers two plans. One they call a direct sold plan and another called an advisor sold plan. And very simply for your listeners, they can do the research, but the direct sold plan often has lower fees, but you don't get any advice about how this savings vehicle might fit into your larger financial plan or which investment options to take. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you could save using the direct sold plan. In Texas, it's called the Texas College Savings Plan. The advisor sold plan in Texas, the Lone Star 529 plan, is an enrollment through a financial advisor. So again, I think sometimes when these plans are put together, that they got a little too tricky and became a little more complicated than maybe folks wanted. But the reality is there are good opportunities in place. There are good resources to make the choices between one plan or another. And I think your listeners would be really well advised to just do a little research, not a lot, but just a little, to get the basics of the plans and find one that works best for them.
Tell me this, because I can't say that I've ever really had a good understanding of this. You take the state of Texas, their plan, there's no state income tax, there's really nothing that saves you money for going into the Texas plan. I mean, is there really any other plan in the country that you're going to compare to Texas and go, oh, there's a big notable difference?
Yeah, and what you'll want to do, and on this site that I told you about at collegesavings.org, you can go down and look at the fee structure, to compare the fees, and then also the contributions, and then what the investment options were. And then there's also performance information, so you can see that. So it's like any other investment. What's the least amount of fee? What's the greatest return? And net over time, where would I have been better off?
Sure.
So, it's like any other investment, basically.
And do they find that information on your website?
They can find that at collegesavings.org. That's the National Association of State Treasurers site, and they call it the 529 College Savings Plans. There's all that information there in the Find My State 529 plan and the comparison. When you go up on the site, it's really well laid out. No one will have trouble finding it.
Okay, and now there's also a guaranteed tuition-based plan that I'm actually a very big fan of a 529 plan, but it works a little bit differently. Talk about the prepaid guaranteed tuition plan.
Yes, when they set up the 529 plans, there were actually, I'll say, like two flavors of them. The flavor that you're talking about, the prepaid plan, was actually the genesis of all of these 529 plans. States had them back before the savings plans. And the way they work, Bob, it's really interesting. And I'm glad to hear you say that you're a fan of them, because what it basically says to a family, look, if you want to go, let's pick Texas, because Texas has a Texas Tuition Promise Fund, a prepaid program. Let's say you want to go to one of the schools in Texas, they're participating. I can go in there now and make an investment and buy tuition units or tuition credits. Every plan's a little different, the terminology, but basically I'm locking in the cost of that future tuition at today's prices. And that's just an absolutely huge benefit. Basically, finance people would say that's an inflation hedge, right? If I know today that I've been able to buy it and the cost increases significantly more over time, I'm still locked in at this today's prices. So I think that's a really significant opportunity. And what I tell folks is that you have to realize that for the prepaid guaranteed tuition, and you said that, and I think emphasized it, and I'll emphasize it. Those plans, the qualified distribution, meaning what can you use those funds for, is for tuition. So it's not all of the other, like housing and food and some of the other costs. The 529 savings plans allow you to use funds out of those accounts for those other costs. So lots of times, you talk to some folks who are thinking about how to save, and you say you might want to buy some tuition units so you're locking in that price. But if you have some extra dollars that can be invested, maybe put them in a 529 plan as well, so that you can cover some of those other expenses that we were talking about.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. The prepaid plan allows you a lot of flexibility. So you could go on that plan and pay for the first 2 years with a junior college, and then graduate up to a public 2 years at a public school as well. Couldn't you do that?
You can, as long as all those schools are participating as they're offering their tuition in the program. So the state program that I talked about before in Texas, there's also a national program called the Private College 529, and they have a similar program for about 100 of the private colleges and maybe one or two of the big public flagship universities. But the catch with the prepaid, I said that purposely, catch, not trick, but a catch really is that it has to be used at one of the participating schools in the program. So I think that's a worthy note for anyone who's thinking about using the prepaid program. Great tuition hedge. Just have to make sure that it's in the sort of choice set that the student will want. And then the obvious question is, well, what if they don't go to that school? And then same thing, there's disclosure that you can read about how you get your money back and what the return will be on that money. So it's not as if you'll lose all that. You just won't get the total benefit that you'd signed up for.
Well, there's a lot to look at. Well, let's talk a little bit about some details of the question that we talked about at the beginning of the program. The Trump account or the 529 plan. To talk a little bit about the Trump account, and then do a little bit of a comparison. What do you think out of the two of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And on mycollegecorner.com, I'm throwing a lot of .coms around today, but mycollegecorner.com, we actually put an article up there that goes through this in a little bit of detail.
Great.
Next week for 529 week, we're going to put another article up, and I'm hoping to be able to actually include this show as part of the article that we put up. So what the Trump accounts are, again, signed into law, it'll be July 4th of 2025. So a year ago, as part of the big, beautiful bill, was the creation of the Trump account. And basically, what the Trump account goal is to provide a head start for a child for savings and I'm going to say broadly, not just for college. And what's interesting is some folks will call them 530A accounts because 530A is a section of the revenue code that they were born under. I'd rather see the Trump account stick, quite honestly, because it's 538, 529 gets too confusing. But what it allows is that the government is going to seize, so they're going to give $1,000 for each eligible account, and the eligibility is really just when the child's born. So a child born from January 1, 2025 through 2028 is going to be eligible for this $1,000. So I've told my daughter and son-in-law, sign Zoe up and get her $1,000 from the government and put it in an account. Now, what's interesting, Bob, this account is much like an IRA. So the parents do not own this account. Zoe will own the account. She'll have that $1,000. When she turns 18, she gets that money free and clear. So the parents don't have any control over it at the time of the 18th birthday. And there are also caps on the amount that parents and other contributors can put into these accounts each year. And that's capped at about $5,000. Now, the good news with these accounts is that there are also, and many of the employers are jumping on this bandwagon, an employer contribution into those accounts it's maxed out at $2,500. So again, take the $1,000. If you have a child, a grandchild, whatever, born in that time, make sure that they have an account open in their name. You take the $1,000, it will be invested over time. Then the parents can decide, the employer can contribute. Do I actually want to grow this account over time? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And the last part I'll just say is that the Trump account tax benefits are not nearly as good as what the 529 benefits are. We can go through that in a little more detail. But at the end of the day, the Trump account says we're going to set up the savings account. Kid turns 18, they get the money. They can use it for education if they want. They can use it for a mortgage, whatever basically they want, or they can leave it as a really great head start on their own retirement fund. So again, worth knowing more about.
What do you think of, or how do what do you think about the situation where at 18 we can expect our grandchild to make a good decision like that? Do you think that maybe it should be bumped to 21 or maybe even 25?
Yeah, I think the devil is in the detail of all this, as you're saying. And I mean, the other part of this is that those earnings will grow tax deferred, but they'll be subject to federal and state income tax when they're on, right?
Right.
That becomes then, okay, the 18-year-old making these fairly sophisticated decisions about whether to take the money or not. And, I know too many 18-year-olds will say, okay, whatever it is, I have $8,000 and I have to go pay some tax. It means I'm going to get 5 out of this. I'll take the money tomorrow. Thank you.
Right. So we'll see how that works out, right? Once again, I want to make sure that you're aware of this, that John's got some great resources, mycollegecorner.com, without a doubt. And that's the first that I've heard of. He put together the I hope I'm calling this the right thing, but the comparison software for all 529 plans. And as you peel back the onion, so to speak, I mean, you see there's so much detail. So his comparison software was quite a blessing. And correct me if I'm wrong, you can get to that and use it for free. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, collegesavings.org, the National Association of State Treasurers, and some others. But and Bob, you made a point, and I want to just step back 1 second. It is complicated. And there are a lot of balls in the air, but I'm trying to tell people they shouldn't be deterred by that.
Right.
Because let's just say you go on and you pick one plan, any plan, right, and you put some money in there. That's a lot better than taking 2 or 3 years, right, and getting paralysis by analysis, right? So just go do something, and you'll be better off.
Now, one of the things that I like about this is that you can get other family members in kind of involved in this savings program, grandparents. can, correct me if I'm wrong, but once again, can open a 529 plan for grandchildren.
That's right. Anybody can open an account for basically anybody. I can open one for myself right now and then transfer it to Zoe whenever I want. So you can actually transfer beneficiaries, which is one of the great attributes of these accounts.
Yes.
It makes it, and so because the knock or the con about saving for college is that, well, I don't know that Zoe's going to want to go to college, right? The parents don't know what a newborn's going to want to do in 18 years, right? And so the Congress, and I give them a lot of credit for this, Bob, they've really expanded the uses over time. 30 years ago, it was just for college expenses. And then they started saying, okay, we need to expand this a little bit more. So now you can use it for tuition, fees, housing and food, books and supplies, computer equipment, also for certificate and apprenticeship programs. So not just for college, but now for, like you're saying, the junior college or the community colleges, if you're getting a certificate or apprenticeship programs that are out there, you can use up to $20,000 a year for K through 12 expenses. So it's tuition, and they broadened that and said, okay, other expenses as well. $10,000 can be used for each beneficiary. So Zoe would be the beneficiary in our case. She could use that for up to $10,000 of student loan payments that are coming. And then if the funds are unused at the end of the period, so, let's say, God bless my granddaughter, she goes to college and she has money left in her account, they can transfer that money to another family member. Or it can be rolled into a Roth IRA. There's some fine print around all of this, but for the high level, you can roll it into a Roth IRA. And then if all else fails, and say, you know what, I just want the cash back, you can take that cash back and pay taxes and a 10% penalty on the earnings, just as you could like in the Coverdell and some of the others. So I think that they've done a great job of saying, I understand why people may not want to save for college. Let me go and broaden the uses so that it's more appealing to more people. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out quite right, you can always roll to another into an IRA or provide the funds to another family member. That sounds pretty good to me.
It does. I want to make sure too that we point out and or emphasize is that money does come out tax free to pay for college, which is really a pretty cool thing.
Exactly right. And that's one of the comparisons to the Trump accounts. You're putting the money in, but on the Trump side, you're taking it out. You have to pay taxes. On the 529 side, you're not paying any taxes on that. Also, there are no the contribution limits. Let me put it this way. The contribution limits in the 529 plan meet the annual gifting requirement. So $19,000 for single file is $38,000. And they have a special 5-year kind of like a supercharge where I can put in $95,000 for single or $180,000 for joint filers in a lump sum. Folks have that kind of money where they're trying to maybe jumpstart the child's significant college savings or using it for wealth transfer purposes and then allowed for education. That's another really significant attribute that's very positive for savers.
So real quick, we have about 30 seconds, which is not fair, but how do 529 plans affect financial aid? Because I know that's on people's minds.
Yeah, great question. So if a grandparent has a 529, they give the money to the student, no effect at all on financial aid. If a parent owns the account, 5.64%, very technical, but call it $564 on every $10,000 that you have in your account is the amount that the aid would be reduced by. And the student, if they have their own account, it's considered their asset, and that's a 20%, I'm going to say tariff or tax. So it's the best, absolutely the best way. Grandparents, no effect. Parents, minimal effect. And much better to have the name, the asset in the parent's name.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. John's website is mycollegecorner.com. With a lot of great information there. Go check it out. John, congratulations again on the granddaughter. And looking forward to next month, and we'll talk again.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Blessings to your listeners.
Blessings to you as well. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.